Good morning, everybody. Pablo here from Better World International, and today I have with me is awesome Rebecca. Rebecca is the National Accounts Representative and Be the Much organization, which I think it's. Are you one of the biggest, or you are the biggest?
We are, yes.
Yes, and organization which actually specialize in marrow donations and marrow patients matching, right?
hmm
Those kind of things.
Yep.
So, Rebecca, it's my pleasure. We had some questions from our tribe that all those people that would like to do something good. A lot of people are scared about donation, donation, and they don't know what are the consequences. There is a lot of different things out there. Some of these people saying, "Oh my God, it's horrible, it's painful," and some of those information what we have, it's actually wonderful and technology change and stuff like this. So, welcome.
Thank you.
After our small talk, I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yes, I agree. I'm happy to share as much information and dispel some of those myths. A lot of people think it's a real scary process. So I'm happy to talk through it with you and get people a little bit more understanding of what we're doing.
Okay, so I have the few questions for you, and those are easy questions. But from where I would like to start to understand why, who needs the bone marrow, um, why people use that, what is the problem out there, so we could grasp and understand what's really going on.
Sure. We've got about 14,000 patients that search every year for a bone marrow match. And those patients have blood disorders. So basically, when we talk about bone marrow creates your red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And a patient that has a blood disease, their bone marrow is not working correctly to produce those cells. So what their doctor does is assess their situation, look at what their treatment plan is like, and if they are going to have a successful outcome if they're receiving a bone marrow transplant, that's what they'll suggest. And what needs to happen with a bone marrow transplant is the patient's immune system, which is what's determined by their bone marrow, is reduced using chemo. And then there's a donor on the other side that's getting prepped to donate their marrow cells. So if that patient is decided that that's the best protocol, the physician will look to the registry, which is we operate the national registry for the United States, but the physicians also search worldwide for a patient. And so if there is an exact match found, our staff will start getting that donor what we call worked up, making sure that they're the healthiest potential donor and kind of get them set on that protocol. But the process starts way before that donor is actually found. We need to add people to the registry before we can even share potential results for those patients. So we have a lot of staff across the country, actually across the world, adding people to the registry every day that are committed to donating if they are called. So we use two different terms. Registry member are those folks that have said, yes, I'd be happy to donate if I'm ever needed. And then we also have donors, and that's folks that have actually gone forward, donated their product, and a patient has received their transplant.
So what's going to happen with those people if they're not going to receive the donation from the bone marrow?
Most of the time, they don't make it. They will die.
Really?
A lot of the time, if they are not going to find a match through the registry, there are some special clinical trials that may prolong their life a little bit. But without replacing their life-providing marrow, they're not going to be able to overcome their illness,
Really?
and they will pass away. Yeah.
So it's that serious?
It is that serious. You can save a life by being on our registry, and it's a pretty simple process just to help somebody. I mean, it's a cure for cancer. Most people don't realize that there is a cure out there already for certain kinds of cancers, and it's something that we provide. We provide a cure.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a cure for some parts of cancer, like blood cancer or something?
Yep. Leukemia, lymphoma, sickle cell anemia. There are, I think, over 77 different illnesses that can be cured with a bone marrow transplant.
Could you tell me, I know it might be sad information, but how many people actually dies because of they not receiving the donation?
That's a number I don't have because we only work based on how many transplants we provide. There are times where patients will get a transplant from a sibling, or they may pass away before a transplant can happen. And we don't keep track of those numbers only because we focus on those that receive a marrow transplant.
Okay, and could you tell me how big is demand and how you are able to provide, how much you are able to provide?
About 70% of those patients, of the 14,000, don't have a match within their family, and they come to our registry to find that match. We really want to make sure that we can match all patients, but we don't always have a match in our system for patients that maybe have multiple racial background, things like that. So there's a need to grow the registry to meet that demand. I don't have those exact numbers in front of me of who doesn't get that.
No worries. So I'm trying to understand. So what is this kind of match? Is it the different parts or different kinds of bone marrows, and there's so many that it's hard to sometimes find a match?
Yep. So what we look at are called human leukocyte antigens, and it's an HLA type. And basically, we look at 8 of those markers. You inherit 4 of them from your mom and 4 of them from your dad. So you've got 8 letters that have to be an exact match for that patient and donor to work out. And they're all inherited. So if mom is of one ethnicity and dad is of another, you're going to have a lot more mixtures of letters to have to match up. So mixed race patients need to have a mixed race donor. So, for example, I'm Caucasian of German descent, and I have potentially 1,400 matches on the registry because I've got a very common HLA marking. And I know that because we have a really cool system on our website that if you know your HLA type, you can kind of do a quick search to see what else is out there. But somebody that might be Japanese and Caucasian has a whole lot less of a chance of finding an exact match because there aren't as many Japanese and Caucasian people on the registry.
May I ask what the Caucasian means?
Caucasian is a ethnicity term that we use. Caucasian or would be German descent, Eastern European, Western European, kind of Caucasian demographic.
Okay,
yep.
So Caucasian is Western European.
Correct. Western European is considered Caucasian. Yeah, so non-Caucasian would be African, Japanese, Asian, Chinese, Korean. Yeah, so anyone that's non-white.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, So how is that so far in organization inside? How is that so far doing? Is it changing? Like people donating more and more? And is it actually good direction, or there is a problem exist out there?
Sure. We always have more patients year over year that need a transplant, and we don't know if that's because physicians are becoming more educated that this is a great cure for those patients, or if illness is just rising. And that's something that our transplant physicians look at every year and try to find some trends. But our goal is to really meet the demand of our patients and continue to grow the registry, which we do every year as well. When I started with the organization 6 years ago, I think we had 9 million on the registry that were available. And now we are up to 12. So we've got 12 million people that are out there that have said, yes, they're willing to donate. So growing is good. We really like to see that. And, the young people of today, I say that like I'm an old lady, but our younger generation are more and more committed to helping out patients and are joining on college campuses and at events and things like that they're really stepping up and saying that they're willing to help somebody if they're ever called.
I understand demand is growing. So, okay. So who can donate and what is the perfect person who can donate?
So anyone can join that's between the ages of 18 and 44. And those are kind of the ideal potential donors that are looked at from our physicians. The absolute perfect donor that gets called 90% of the time is someone that's between 18 and 22 and male. So we want those young men that are nice and healthy because their bone marrow is actually nice and healthy as well. It engrafts more quickly with our patients, and they just have better results. Our main focus is patient success rates and making sure their transplant is successful, that it engrafts, and that their new immune system or their new bone marrow helps them continue life. So that 18 to 22-year-old we really, really like for them to join. but anybody that's 18 to 44 can sign up. And to join the registry, it's just a cheek swab. So like a Q-tip, they swipe the inside of their cheek, drop it back in the mail, and then they're on the national registry until they turn 61. So they join the registry, making themselves available if they're ever needed to donate. So not everybody that's listed gets to donate. They aren't always needed. So our big focus is to make sure when someone gets that phone call that they are a match, that they say yes. Because someone that maybe joins when they turn 18 may not get a phone call until they're 20, and they may have had some life changes in between there. So our focus is on that commitment, because that person could be the patient's only match in the entire world. And if that one donor is not available or thinks that maybe they're not able to donate because of any reason, we want to understand those fears and talk to them about it and help our patients understand that we're providing donors that are going to come through.
What about those people who are 30 years old or things like that? They're not that much welcome as those people 18?
They are welcome. No, it's just that our younger donors are called more often. But like I was talking about with the antigens, the 8 markers, yes. If there's a rare ethnicity or a patient doesn't have very many matches, they are going to take whoever's on the registry that's the best match. We just find that most often the younger donor, if there are 2, let's say there are 2 potential donors for a patient, one is 18 and male and one is 40 and female, they're going to choose the 18-year-old over the 40-year-old.
Okay, so basically, what I understand, the first step is registration, but I have no idea what kind of number of this kind I have. How I should check it, how I could register.
You don't even really need to check. What we do is with that swab, that's how we find out what your 8 markers are.
But what you mean by swab or swab?
Yep. So like a Q-tip, like a cotton swab you'd clean your ears out with.
Okay.
We have special swabs that are called buccal swabs, and you can join online or at a drive in person. And you fill out a basic consent form, and then if you join online, they send the cheek swabs to your house, and you can swab your cheeks while you're sitting at your desk or watching TV, drop that back in the mail, and then at our lab, they process those cheek swabs for specific DNA markers.
You mean here, like from this one? And
exactly.
So do you send it only in the United States or all over the world?
We have cooperative registries. We register folks that have an address in the United States, but we do have registries worldwide. So almost everywhere you can find a way to join the registry, and we have all that information right on our website. You're able to kind of find out different registries throughout the world, but you all are listed in a big, huge registry whenever a patient searches for a match. So the patient could live in Germany and their donor could come from anywhere. It really just depends on who has joined the registry and who's available that have that specific type.
Okay, so the first step on registering, and is it possible that you will never call me?
There is a big possibility. We do call a lot of people, but about 1 in 540 people actually get called to donate. And so that's a good number, but it's also, we would love to have more people that get that phone call. But we do have a lot of people that sit on the registry and just wait for that call. Like I was talking about before with common ethnicities or the HLA markers, those that have a mixed racial background or that are non-white typically get called more often because they are less represented on the registry. So if you are ethnically diverse, as we like to call it, there's a very large need for people of different kinds of backgrounds, especially if you have mixed race parents. So if you've got 2 different ethnicities in your background, it's really great to have folks of all backgrounds sign up, but mostly we really are looking for people of the diverse ethnic background.
Okay, what if I really, really, really want to donate a bone marrow?
Yep.
And and you're not calling me and not calling me, isn't anything what I could do?
No, there's nothing, unfortunately. We have to have a patient that needs your marrow in order to call you to donate. The best thing to do is make sure your contact information is up to date with us, and that we can actually get in touch with you if we call you. But what we do with a lot of our very excited registry members is ask them to volunteer. We add thousands and thousands of people to the registry every year. So just sharing the information, whether it's on a social media page or telling a friend about it, can help, because maybe your best friend or your neighbor is the perfect match for a patient, even though you might not be.
Okay, so what is interesting for me, those are other listings or other place, like for example, I understand you have 12 millions. Is it other places that there, for example, there's 200 millions or something like this?
No, we operate the largest registry, but we combine, I think there are about 5 million more throughout the country. I'm sorry, throughout the world, to add to that registry. And I can get you the big numbers. So we have the largest. Yep. Isn't that sad? Yeah.
Okay.
We need to add more people. That's the goal, is to try to get everybody that's eligible to sign up, so that we have more people to search through.
Okay, and do you have this registry international? For example, let's say I'm right now I'm in Poland, but let's say after that I'm in Australia, and so those registry are international, or actually every.
So when you join, that's a great question. So if you join in Poland and you move, as long as you still have your contact information updated with the registry you joined, they can find you anywhere. The U.S. is a great example. If you go to university and on one coast, and then you move to California, make sure you keep your contact information up to date with us, because we can still reach you no matter where you are. And then we have a network of donor centers where the donor would actually go to donate the product for the patient. So no matter where you are, we'll be able to make sure we find you if you are a match for someone. But yeah, it's based on where you join the registry, and you don't need to join more than once. So like if you moved to the United States and you were already a member on a different list, you don't need to join multiple times.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so let's say one beautiful day, you calling me and say, "Hey, Pavel, we need your bone marrow."
Yep.
So what is the process there then?
That's great. So there are a couple different ways to donate. So they would call you and talk to you a little bit about your health history, make sure you're still in as good of health as you were when you joined the registry. And you would go forward and do a couple different exams. You would get a full physical from one of our doctors, just to make sure, again, we're not going to disrupt any health conditions you already have. Make sure you're healthy enough to donate. And let's just say you're all good and you are the final choice for that patient. You won't know who the patient is. It's confidential, and that's to keep everybody safe and healthy going through the process, so that you can't accept any bribes or anything like that. We want to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons, obviously. But your donor center staff person will explain 2 different ways to donate to you. The first way is a non-surgical blood process, and that's done about 77% of the time. You get a series of shots, and that helps your cells come out of your bone marrow and into your bloodstream.
So, first of all, I have those tests.
You're cleared. You're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. What about those people who smoke medical marijuana, for example?
Oh, that's not a problem. That will be out of your system in time. That would not preclude you from donating at all. It's larger health issues, like if you've had major forms of cancer, if you've had any autoimmune issues, things that could potentially make your marrow unhealthy for a patient to receive. So basic recreational things are not going to be an issue. And there's a full list of medical guidelines on our website as well. So if anyone does have a question or has a history of a medical illness, they can really quickly browse the list and see what it is, why we may not be able to have them donate, or other ways that they can become involved too.
Okay. All right. So
you're nice and healthy. You're good
to go.
Tell
me, hey Pavel, go to this location. You're going to get all the tests, physical, and are you healthy and other stuff. And then you schedule me the place to
donate. Yep.
To donate, and it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
Sure. So it depends. We estimate that it's about 30 to 40 hours spread out over a 6-week period of time. So we don't do all this. We don't cram it all into one day. We spread it out for you. So if, you don't have the time to take off from work, things like that, we really work with your schedule so that it's easy to do. If you are asked to donate the blood process, they actually have nurses that can come to you to give you some of the injections.
What does it mean? What if you're asked to donate the blood process?
Sure. So when you're donating to the patient, there's two different ways to donate. So when you actually donate your bone marrow, you can either do it through your blood, or you can do it through a process where they actually put you under anesthesia and they take a little bit of marrow from your hip bone. Okay. But that process, the under anesthesia hip bone process, is only done about 23% of the time. And most likely you'll be asked to donate through the blood process. And that's a little bit easier only because you're not going under anesthesia. The recovery time's much shorter. And that's really how most of our donors are donating. So if you've ever been a blood donor before, they sometimes ask you to donate platelets. There's a machine that you hook up to if you donate platelets that takes the blood out of one arm, processes it, and puts it back in the other arm. It's called apheresis. So that is a similar machine that we use to collect the bone marrow. So most people think you've got to, cut open your bone and do something kind of crazy to donate, but it really is just as simple as having a needle in your arm, processing your blood, taking out what we need, and the leftover blood goes right back in your arm. So you're not out of commission for a few days. You really are just going to be a little bit tired afterwards. But it's a pretty simple process that can take anywhere from 6 hours to 8 hours. It depends on the size. Yep.
So what about those 30 to 40 hours?
That is the time period that everything that you do from your very first call that you're a potential donor to the day you donate. So there's an hour-long phone conversation you'll have with a donor contact representative that talks about all the risks and any, there's no payment to you, talking about all of the different legal side of things, and that physical is included in that time frame, and any travel that you might have to do to go to a donation center. If you're in a rural area, you may need to fly or drive somewhere, and we will cover all those expenses. So that is a big time frame that we work, again, with you and your schedule to make sure we can accommodate it.
Who will pay for that?
We do. We cover the whole thing. You don't get paid as a donor, so we don't write you a check and say, hey, thanks for your marrow. But we do pay for all the expenses that you may incur.
But I understand you have this from donations and other stuff, right?
Yep.
Just the people donate and you can cover
Exactly.
those expenses.
Yep. We also have government funding to help as well because we are the National Registry for the United States. And all of the other registries, our cooperative registries, have funding in place as well to cover those costs from general donors from the public as well as different grants and things like that we receive. So that's the funding is all in place for that.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so the actual process of taking my blood and taking what you want and putting it back, it's around 6 to 8 hours.
Mm-hmm. It depends on the size of the patient too. So if you're donating to a little baby, it may not be as long. Or if you're a petite person and you're donating to a larger patient, it may take a little bit longer just because we need a little bit more volume. So the doctor decides how much we really need, and then it gets prescribed that way.
Sure. And then after that, okay, so I understand I'm going, to this place and there's 8 hours. I can listen to audiobook potentially, right?
You can do anything you want. We can watch movies. You can have people come visit you. You'll probably have a volunteer that'll come and say hi and thank you for what you're doing. We try to make it as comfortable as possible.
Okay, and then I understand I'm coming back home and I probably need to take a long sleep.
You may want to take a nap after that, yep.
Okay.
But you're able to go back to do your normal activities the next day.
So I'm not going to be exhausted.
No, you would be able to do anything, I would say, except for maybe run a marathon. You might want to take a day or two off if you're really, really active like that.
Okay, so it's so I can feel a little bit tired, but just a little bit. This is real, a little bit. So it's not like I'm going to die the next day.
No, And what we're taking regrows. So the amount of marrow that we take from you, your body will regenerate it completely in 4 to 6 weeks. but it'll take a little bit of time to regenerate to full capacity, but we don't take everything from you ever. You'll still have your marrow and you'll be making your own cells still throughout the whole time.
So what is why my body needs this blood marrow stuff?
You need it to create your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and your platelets. So basically, bone marrow is the brain of your blood. It decides if you're hurt, that you need more platelets to help stop bleeding. If you have the flu and you need more white blood cells to help fight the sickness, your bone marrow really is what makes your blood. So a patient that needs a transplant, their bone marrow has decided to stop working and not doing what it needs to do. So that's really what we do, is we're completely replacing the blood system of the patient with yours.
Okay, and I understand one person is saving one person. Okay, 1-to-1.
Yep, exactly. Just like a solid organ is a very good example. So if someone donated a kidney, this is just a liquid organ. So it makes a little more sense to kind of think of it that way. Like if you want to donate your kidney to your cousin, you happen to be the same type, that's a solid organ donation. But this is a little different.
Okay, so over the time, can I donate a bone marrow multiple times?
You can, but the most anybody's ever donated is 3 times. And that is just because we don't know really what would happen if you donated more often. There's not really a need for more than that. If you do get called multiple times, sometimes it's for the same patient. So perhaps you donated 3 years ago, that patient may have relapsed a little bit and just needs a little extra bit of your bone marrow. You wouldn't go through the full process again. It's kind of just to top them off, make sure they have enough of the healthy cells. But I have heard of patients or of donors that have gotten called for 3 different patients. They just have really good bone marrow and they've been called more than once. And that's completely safe, and they've been testing them and following them to make sure everything's okay with the donor's body, and it's been done.
Rebecca, so after the process, coming back to normal life, is it anything else that I need to do, check in or check out, or?
Nope, not at all. If you ever feel sick or anything that you think may have been a result of the transplant, we have a donor advocacy group that will pay for a medical test if you want to get checked out, but we've never had an issue, never in all 32 years of us doing this work. So there is no harm to the donor at all. There have been times when our physicals maybe have found something that the donor had that they didn't realize, but it was never a direct result from their donation. Like perhaps they had a medical condition that they never knew about. Going through our testing, they may have found out that they had a medical issue, but it was not anything that we created. They maybe just didn't go to the doctor regularly and didn't realize that they had a weird bump on their ear or something that.
So, Rebecca, so I would like to sum up this part, and I would like to ask you probably 2 more questions.
Sure.
Right now, what our listeners could do, or they should do, is go to your website and first of all register, especially if they are in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to www.bdemaj.com.
.org,
sorry.
Yep, no problem.
So bdemaj.org, and they click register and they fill in the process. Then they're going to receive by mail this thing that you're taking to the
cheek swab. Yep.
Swab, okay. And they send it back and they register. And this is the first, very important, the first step that we should do right now to...
Yes.
And because we can save someone's life.
Exactly.
Okay, and then everybody knows the process right now. Do you listen, everybody? So,
it's on there too. It gives you a lot more information on the website. I know sometimes it gets confusing for me to explain it, but... Yeah, it actually has visuals and pictures, and it shows you the actual donation process, and there's a lot more answers there.
Yes, I do agree. Okay, cool. So, guys, under this interview, you're going to find webpage, and I suggest to do it right now. Because it's when you're going to I'm going to do this later. Let's don't lie to ourselves. You will probably not. So it's good when you listen this interview. It's good to go right now. It's probably going to take you 5 minutes, Rebecca.
Yep. Yeah, at the most.
Okay, and if you are really passionate also about the Marrow donations, Rebecca, how people can help you?
Like I said earlier, sharing it and telling your friends that it's a really cool thing to do. That sounds cheesy, but being able to save somebody's life without a lot of risk with no risk on your end is pretty amazing. Doctors get to do it every day, but cool. This is something that we can do, save a life, with just a little bit of effort.
Sure. Okay, cool. So guys, you know what to do. You will find the links. Go there, register, and let's play our part also. And who knows, maybe you will be the one who's going to save someone's life. Okay, so this is the first part. I think. Is it anything else that what we could do right now? Volunteer probably for your organization. What else?
Yeah, so hosting drives, we do live drives as well throughout the country. So if there's a school group or a local community group, a church, business that wants to host a drive, that's always great too. There's a way on our website too to submit that information on hosting a drive. So that is a really great thing to do. You get lots more people involved, and you're able to make a bigger impact than just yourself.
Okay, Rebecca, if someone is not in the United States right now, what should we do?
Yep. So if you go to our website, under the About Us section, it lists all of the cooperative registries. So you can see, all the different ones listed out there, so you can know exactly where to join in your country.
Okay, that's cool. So guys, bethematch.org, and still About Us, you searching in your country, and then you probably requesting the info from them. And if you probably will not find info, call them, and they will tell you all the details to register.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this would be number one, Rebecca. That's great. I know much more, and I understand right now. So only this process when you put you to anesthesia, this process which might be painful and long and
you're under anesthesia, you don't feel it. If you were wide awake, it might not feel very good, but it's a small needle that they put through your hip bone, and again, you're completely under anesthesia. You don't feel a thing, and even then, you're not out of work. You might have a little bit of hip soreness, but it's not anything that's going to keep you from your regular activities. Like I said, you may not want to go run a marathon right after, but even in that case, it's nothing compared to what the patient's pain and what they're going through with treatment. So
where's this myth coming from? This is so painful and long. What's happened? Is it before that was a painful process?
In the past, they didn't use the blood process as often, so people just kind of misinterpreted how we collected. It is painful on the patient's end because they are going through lots of different procedures, things like that, and sometimes they get it confused with what the donor has happened. So I think that's what happens is you're just not sure, and you just hear pain, and I think that's what people associate with most things. TV and movies and things like that have also kind of not done us any good with talking about how painful it can be. And it's just awareness. It's telling people that it's a pretty easy process to help save a life. So we want to share that information, that it's fairly simple and doesn't take a lot to help.
Okay, Rebecca. So I want to ask you one additional question as an idealist. I call you guys fellow dreamers around the world. Mm-hmm. So Rebecca, how do you think the better world would look like? How the better world will look like? Let's say in next 50 to 100 years, we made it. The world is different. Mm-hmm. How this world is looking like?
Yeah, well, we'd have 14,000 more patients around. There'd be all these patients that have matches. People are joining the registry. It's just second nature. They turn 18, they get their cheek swabbed, and it's just such a do-good attitude that why not help fellow man if you can? And it's, a simple cure that's within you that a doctor can't offer. It's something that everyday people have to provide. So in the future, having everybody being available to donate, that would mean there's so many less patients dying. There's kids that get to grow up because they've gotten a transplant. There's grandparents that get to see their, grandchildren grow up, and it's really saving lives. And I think that's just a huge thing to be able to say you're a part of. Even if you're not physically doing it, by sharing the information, you're helping save lives.
Okay, and in other areas, like if we're going to have the broader look, like how the dream world will look like, if you have you ever thought about this one? What could change? How this world will look like? How different it would be?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we could save the next, president of the United States. There could be an infant right now that needs a bone marrow transplant that gets transplanted and grows up to be, an inventor or someone that really just helps to grow humanity in a way. So it's kind of a neat dreamer perspective, is to see, maybe a patient that would have passed away without a marrow transplant. If they get it, maybe that's the next big impact maker.
Rebecca, thank you so much for this interview. That's wonderful. I really know more. I'm going to register, and this is something what I want to do. And I think when people sharing with me when it's came to the blood donation or bone marrow donation, a lot of people want, but they lack enough information how to do it, and is it painful or not. So because of you, Rebecca, there is very big chance that you're going to have more sign-ups, and who knows, maybe there will be this very rare person that's going to be selected just because of this interview. So
that would be great. Yeah,
I want to thank you so much for all what you do for the other human beings and for the world. It's highly appreciated, especially for those people who are listening to us, and I appreciate you a lot, Rebecca, for doing that.
Great. Thank you for having me and for sharing the information. This is great.
Cool. Okay, guys, you know what to do. BeTheMatch.org. See you there, and who knows? We maybe launch the program like the next collective goal about the bone marrow. So stay tuned and see you in the next episode. Thank you, Rebecca, on the time.
Thank you.